Joined now by United States Senator John Cornyn, former member of the Texas Supreme Court. Senator, I want to get to Section 702 in a second, but I got to ask you, based on your experience, when do you expect any trial of President Trump to begin, given that the jurors are going to need clearances, the lawyers are going to need clearances, everybody's going to need full field investigations by the FBI, the alternates, all that stuff? I don't see this happening in 2024.
Well, it never happens as fast as you think it will at the beginning, and of course, it depends on what the strategy of President Trump's lawyers are. If they decide to draw the process out, they can probably do that to some extent. But my experience, Hugh, as a former judge, is that a lot of it depends on the judge's willingness to take control of the case and the courtroom. And if the judge just lets the lawyers do what they want to do, then there'll be a tug of war, but it'll take much longer than you would otherwise think. So I don't think you're very far off. It's not going to be next week. It's not going to be next month. It's not going to be in the next 6 months.
And given that it's going to land in the middle of a presidential campaign, ought that to have figured into the charging decision, Senator?
Yeah, I think, I don't know what the time frame, what ended the charging decision. But what bothers me, and I think what bothers most people, is the double standard and the fact that President Trump was under attack by the FBI under James Comey and the Justice Department, and then he had to live with a special counsel for 2 years, and then they came up with exactly nothing. And of course, he's been through a historic 2 different impeachment trials in the United States Senate, and now this. And then President Biden and Hillary Clinton and others seem to get off scot-free. That's very troubling, I think, to a lot of people.
All right, let's talk about Section 702, because you're going to have a hearing on that tomorrow. And it's the authority to collect information on Americans collected incidentally in the surveillance of foreign nationals. Apparently, the FBI has misused that database, Senator. What is the hearing about?
Well, Director Wray has put in place a number of corrective measures which he claims would prevent those sorts of abuses from happening again. This is a very important tool for our intelligence agencies, but it's not designed to be used to spy on American citizens, nor is it designed to be used in criminal prosecutions. This is strictly intelligence gathered on foreign individuals overseas. But you're right. Incidentally, sometimes if they're communicating with American citizens, then or U.S. persons, as they're called, including legal permanent residents, then they can be incidentally swept up in this. But there has to be strict oversight, minimization procedures to protect Americans. But of course, an American or U.S. person that's involved in espionage is guilty of a crime. So we're not talking about sweeping that under the rug, but we have to be very scrupulous about this. And unfortunately, the FBI and the intelligence community has not been in the past, damaging the trust that's so important to making the system work.
Now, my last question is a factual question, Senator, and maybe you know this, maybe you don't. I seem to recall that former presidents keep classification authority because they're briefed by current presidents on matter. They get a routine briefing from the CIA, so they keep a routine clearance. Is that correct?
Well, it really depends on the subsequent the subsequent administration, because the executive branch, as you know, controls the classification authorities and the declassification authorities. And so what they allow the rest of the government to see is pretty much up to them and is usually negotiated between the branches. But, we classify way too much information and we declassify too little. We've got a major piece of legislation, bipartisan legislation we're working on to try to address that. This is the same thing that Daniel Patrick Moynihan's select committee tried to address many years ago, but that report basically sat on the shelf. So I think this is part of the reason why you have former presidents and vice presidents treat classified materials so lackadaisically, because they figure this is the same information that a reasonably educated person could see in the newspaper or watch on TV. But of course, as you know, the fundamental difference is sources and methods, and that could be dangerous to people who are trying to keep our country safe.
Yeah, you can hold two thoughts: that it's an extremely dangerous set of allegations and potentially damaging leaks, and that the Department of Justice has a lot of questions to answer. And you'll be asking them. I hope you get a chance to ask Director Wray tomorrow what classification authority the current president is extended to the former president, because I don't know. I haven't seen it reported. He may still have SCI SAP access. I just don't know. Senator John Cornyn, always a pleasure. Have a good hearing tomorrow. Thank you for joining me.